Madam Speaker. My speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. A very good morning to everyone present in this debate today. Panel of judges, the Prime Minister herself has already failed to characterize what free school philosophy is. She said that free school philosophy is a system where students learn based off their own initiative without any outside motivators such as teachers. We accept that definition, but she did not characterize how the free school is going to run. How do you plan to implement it? Do you still have teachers? Who is given authority? The students or teachers? How does it work? She did not state any of these at all. And secondly, she did not state any stakeholders. And since she did not do that, I will address the stakeholders later on. I will begin by rebutting a few points she said. She said that she will support free school philosophy and add it in tandem with the current status quo. My question to the government bench is, how do you plan to support it? Do you plan to support it financially? Are you actually going to set up an independent body to implement this free school philosophy? Because the thing is, free school philosophy does not rely on teachers. Standardized schools heavily rely on teachers. So how are you supposed to cooperate these two things together? A system that doesn't need teachers and a system that needs teachers. I don't think the government bench understands the topic for today. And secondly, about her substantive on how conventional education system is stagnant. No, thank you. She compared our current learning styles to what we did 100 years ago. Members of the floor, this is completely false. They totally ignored the Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia, the KPM's initiative to introduce KSSM, which is the new syllabus. The new syllabus incorporates new modern styles of learning. No, thank you. I'll take it later. They say that we don't use technology. Another complete false statement. Under the KSSM, we have introduced many new subjects that implement technology such as science computer, ICT, and etc. And to add to that, under KSSM, each school is obliged to have a Frog VLE room. A Frog VLE room is where you have laptops. Students will use laptops to learn interactively with teachers. They do not understand the current status quo. So how are you supposed to implement the free school philosophy? And her example about Finland having the best education system in the world. Another completely false statement, members of the floor. Finland does not apply free school philosophy. As she has said herself, free school philosophy relies on the students. Finland heavily relies on the teachers. They do not have a standardized curriculum, but the teachers decide what they need to do. This is totally different compared to what free school philosophy is. Before I move on, yes, I'll take your POI.
You have failed to understand that the core concept of free school philosophy is to give freedom of choice to the students. That is the core.
Yes, I understand, but you did not characterize what free school philosophy is. Did you state whether we still have teachers? Did you state how much power you're giving to the students? Members of the floor, she did not draw the line at all. It's difficult to have a debate. No, thank you. Since the government did not introduce a burden, I will introduce a burden to you. As opposition, our burden here is to prove how free school philosophy is less beneficial compared to the status quo. Therefore, it is completely unnecessary. We have introduced 3 stakeholders, which the government did not introduce, by the way. The 3 stakeholders are students, teachers, and the workforce. As opposition, we'll prove to you how every stakeholder can benefit from the status quo. So since the Prime Minister did not characterize what free school philosophy is, I will explain to you how free school philosophy actually works. Free school philosophy is essentially a system where students are given authority. As the definition goes, they do not rely on teachers. Free schools heavily practice democracy as a way of governing the school, where everyone is entitled to one vote, regardless of your age, regardless of your status, regardless of your position, which means that teachers get one vote, students get one vote. Teachers and students are put on the same level playing field. Fundamentally, everyone is equal, but then we have to understand that teachers are only the minority. So even though you have a vote, the students will outnumber you. For an example, in a school, we might only have 70 teachers, but we have 1,000 students. So as I said earlier, teachers become the minority. They lose in terms of numbers. So what do I mean by they govern the school? Things like deciding the syllabus you learn, the policies you apply, and how you discipline students are all decided using democracy. And as I've made it extremely clear, students decide what they want to do. So how does this look like? It means that students get to decide what curriculum they are studying, because free school philosophy is basically about letting students decide, which is what the Prime Minister said herself. This will result in certain
PY.
subjects being totally neglected by students. No, thank you. You'll have subjects like maths. Many students will take maths, but many students are going to neglect history. Why? Because they are given the choice to ignore these subjects. In our world, we value teachers. Teachers are there. They are trained, they are certified, they have the expertise, they have the experience. Therefore, we respect teachers. We are going to rely on them to govern the school. As opposition bench, we have 4 substantives. First, I will prove to you how free school philosophy differs to the status quo. I will then elaborate on how free school philosophy does not prepare students for the workforce. My deputy leader of opposition will be talking about how students have less of an incentive to actually study on their own. And secondly, she'll be talking about how free school philosophy leads to a slower learning pace. So now let's compare free school philosophy to the actual status quo. Our status quo has the best aspects of free school philosophy without any of the disadvantages. If our status quo can offer the same thing free school philosophy does, why do we even need it in the first place, Prime Minister? Our education system has a standardized curriculum where we trust teachers to do what they do best, unlike the government. First of all, freedom, no thank you. First of all, freedom still exists. Students have the freedom to decide what course they want to study. But the status quo is better than free school because students are provided a guideline. Yes, you can take science stream, you can take sub-science or art stream. You can decide all that. You have the liberty to do so, but you are guided. Make it quick, please. I'll take your VI. Make it
Do you
quick.
realize that what you said is actually the implementation of free school philosophy, but just at a different, at a lower percentage? It is actually
No, this is
free school
completely
philosophy.
false. This is false. Our current standard curriculum, we rely on teachers. Your system does not rely on teachers. Our standard curriculum has guidance provided by teachers. Yours doesn't. Where are the students going to go? How are they going to be guided? And the guideline that we provide under our standardized curriculum is not there to limit you in any way. It is there to make sure that you take the right path and you do not get lost along the way. Secondly, independence is not limited at all. Students still practice democracy under our status quo. We know that we use democracy to vote for the presidents of clubs, to vote for our class monitors. So democracy is still heavily applied. To the second argument on how it does not prepare students for the workforce. We understand that the workforce is a very competitive environment and it is not forgiving. If you live in a world where students learn in free school philosophy, they become soft. They think that they can counter every problem just by voting things out of power. Because as I said earlier, we use democracy. If students don't like a specific teacher, they can use the vote of no confidence to vote that specific teacher out of power. This is not how the workforce works. If your boss is being irrational and unfair to you, you cannot simply use vote of no confidence to vote him out of power. Their policy, their mechanism is completely irrational because it does not prepare students for the realistic world. Therefore, I have made it extremely clear how we do not need free school philosophy at all because our status quo does the same thing without any of the drawbacks, and how it is completely unnecessary because it will only make the current education system more messy. For those reasons, I'm so very proud to oppose against the government team who doesn't even understand what free school philosophy is. Thank you very much.
All right.